Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Star Trek literary podcast that is that a Trek in your pocket? The very erudite Patrick Brennan joined here by the man of letters himself, Robert McCullough. Good evening, Sir Robert. How are you this evening?
Very good, Sir Butch. Happy to be turning tracks here with you on a Thursday night.
Yes, it has not been. It was a long time. We went a few months between literary treks the last time, but it's only been a couple weeks since our last one. So this is our eighth Trek in Pocket episode, our pocket trek, as it were, the Pocket Books 50 first novels countdown and ranking that we're doing by random, as you're keeping track
Is that a
of.
Pretenders reference, Butch?
It might be. My city is gone, so.
I thought you were doing brass in pocket. You said Trek in pocket.
Trek in Pocket. That's right. Okay, yes. Like a pigeon from hell. That's all I know. Okay, so that's anyway. So tonight's book is the number 33.
What about tattooed red shirts?
Yeah, we're gonna have to workshop some of this Pretenders material for a later podcast, but
I think we've successfully named every Pretenders song I
know. Yes, exactly. All right, so tonight we are doing the 33rd numbered podcast Star Trek novel from Pocket Books, Deep Domain, written by Howard Weinstein, from March '87 is when this was published. So you were already in Bellingham at this point, weren't you? Or not Wenatchee? You were in Wenatchee at this point.
I was in Wenatchee, yeah. Yes, I was. So I was in the sunshine. I was playing tennis. I mean, life was pretty good.
I do remember sitting in study hall at some point and reading this book. So, yeah. So
really?
I can vaguely remember the artwork is what I remember mostly, right? So it was either this or Memory Prime. I'm not sure. It was one of those two, probably both. Memory Prime is pretty close to this in terms of where it falls.
Well,
so.
I just read this book last week, and mostly what I remember is the cover. So,
well, let's see. Howard Weinstein, still around. He's 69 years old. Yes, there you go. Let's go find him. His first professional writing credit was the animated series episode, The Orion Pirates. So he had a writing credit on Star Trek, the animated series in the early 70s. That's pretty impressive. He's written episodes for Marvel Comics of their comics that deal with Deep Space Nine and Voyager. He's written at least 4 original series novels, The Covenant and the Crown, which is novel 4, which means we'll get to it eventually, and another one called the Beth Mott or something, or the Best Man, or that's number 72, which means we won't get to that unless we dig in farther than 50. And then a couple of ones later that aren't even numbered ones, but they're original series episodes. So he has written a lot, although this is fairly early in his novel writing career. He had written these characters before. I think we will see he has a little bit of a pretty good feel for the characters, I think. So I'll give him credit for that. And this novel is a long 275 pages and a dense 275 pages. You may not know this, Rob, but right now where I work in the Oregon State Legislature, we are going through a period where somebody pointed out that way back in 1979, the legislature in Oregon passed a law that says that bill summaries have to be written at an 8th grade level or easier to read. So we're doing all this, and there's an online calculation thing, right, where you put a paragraph in there and you ask, okay, what's the reading level of this? And it tells you. And I put the little blurb on the back of this novel, the little 2-paragraph blurb. The thing we always used to write, the little blurb on the back. The blurb says, a routine diplomatic visit to the water world of Akkala becomes a nightmare search for a missing Spock and Chekhov, a search that plunges Admiral Kirk headlong into a corrupt government's desperate struggle to retain power. That paragraph is a college-level reading level. So, yeah, we were ahead of our time reading college-level novels back in our day. Whereas if you put like a Stephen King quote in there, it's usually right around 8th grade level. So,
oh, really?
It's because he knows how to write at that level. He can definitely write harder stuff, but he just knows how to write at that level.
He likes to sell books.
Yeah, exactly. You're writing for a mass audience. And so, yeah, so anyway, I thought that was impressive that way back then we were reading complicated prose. when we were reading these novels. We were showing our literary chops.
Yeah.
So you're saying you don't really have a recollection of this book at all? I have like just a bare recollection of it. I remember it took place underwater. I didn't remember anything about the story.
I didn't either, and but it, like you, I Wikipedia'd it, and it does have an interesting backstory from the
Yes.
glory, kind of we're in something of a Star Trek resurgence right now.
Yeah, we
Also,
are. Yeah, we
but
are.
you could definitely call the '80s another. Well, you could call the '70s a big Star Trek resurgence. Maybe it's just something they are constantly doing, but the mid '80s and the late '80s, that was a golden age as well. And there's kind of a cool tie into that era with this book. Butch, why don't you tell us about that?
So yeah, so I actually the preface of the book tells a little bit about it too, right? So this guy was approached by whoever it was who was developing Star Trek 4 with to come up with a story line for an underwater adventure or something like that, either underwater or something related to whales or something like that. So he came up with something similar to this storyline, and then found out later, actually, we're going to do time travel. So thanks for your thing, but no thanks. And he's like, that's okay. I'll write a novel. It's probably more lucrative to write a screenplay for a movie that's going to be a
But he
major
got
motion picture.
credited in the movie.
He did, yes, because because he did some research on stuff like that that they then used to bolster their stuff, right?
How cool would that be, Butch? Seriously, what would you give to have your name on the credited in a Star Trek film, especially a good one like Star Trek 4?
Can't even fathom. I mean, that'd be unfathomable. So yeah, I mean, it's really impressive that he got, and he says, he got to meet some of the actors and stuff like that as a result of working on this and things, which is, most of the novelists that we've been reading don't get to meet the actors just because they write the novels, right? Exactly. Those two don't normally cross over.
Yeah, we covered novelists who had never seen Star Trek, for crying out loud.
Yes, we have. You could tell redheaded Scotty on the pages of Spock Messiah, I think, if I remember correctly. That's right. So in this novel, they're sent to bring some supplies and maybe a debrief to a science team on a Federation planet. We don't often get to hear what all the Federation planets are. This one is a Federation planet called Akkala, and it's 98% water. Or
Wow.
I'm sorry. I'm hearing 98.611% water. Be more
Hey,
precise, Mr. Chekhov.
Mr. Lieutenant Butch, wouldn't that be on this planet 98.16% water?
Well, water. That's exactly right. Absolutely. You're right about that. So, uh, yeah, they have. I don't know if it's all speech impediment or what's going on there, but yes. So, by the way, on another note, there we had a training today at work where a person was explaining that things aren't what they seem, and they're like, people are 98% water, and I'm like muttering under my breath, no, they're not. Looking it up on there on my phone and showing one of my coworkers, 60%. That's right. I mean, yeah, your bones aren't made of water. You telling me your bones don't make up more than 2%? Come on, man.
Maybe that person was sloshed.
Yes.
I don't know.
I'm drinking a lot of water. I'm bending the curve on my percentages right now. Throwing
Yeah,
down
to
a lot of
your
water.
point about the eighth grade reading level,
Yeah.
right? My hypothesis that makes stuff more accessible in the case of Stephen King, probably higher sales, right?
Yes.
We were having our excuse me, it's cottonwood season here
Oh yes.
At McCullough Manor. So we were having our nightly battle the other night for what we're going to watch. Mrs. Madness and I.
Yes.
And we decided on the Black Phone. Have you seen that, Butch?
I don't think I have.
Excuse me. And it's a pretty recent, last couple of years horror movie that I'd heard good things about, and it has Ethan Hawke in it. And so we're watching it, and it's the premise is basically some nut in Denver is abducting kids. This kid gets abducted. While he's in the dungeon at this guy's house,
Oh.
there is a disconnected phone that will ring every so often, and it is dead kids that have been in this basement before calling this kid with hints, right? So, like, hey, don't go upstairs. He's waiting for you. That kind of stuff.
Yes.
And so we watched this movie, and it ends, and I was like, yeah, that was pretty stupid. And about halfway through, I was like, this reminds me of Sinister, which we did.
We did do that, yes, we did.
And I didn't like that, and everybody else loves it, right? I mean, it's well regarded.
Yeah.
And turns out it's the same director, so.
And the same actor, Ethan Hawke.
Same actor, right. So anyway, we got to the end of the movie. I was like, I didn't like that. And my wife said, that's because it's aimed at 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, I think it was aimed at 15-year-olds. So then I looked up the box office. I'll be damned if that isn't also winning formula in movies, Butch, because that thing made a shit ton of money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, that's who goes to movies. I mean, my peak movie going was between the ages of 15 and 22. Right?
Oh, yeah. So if the legislature wants bills in 8th grade language, I get it. You're gonna sell. I don't know. I'm sure we all wish the tax code was in an 8th grade level or something, but yeah, I'm sure there's a good reason to make it more accessible and less jargony.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I don't know if it's years of schooling or years of doing the job I do, but if I just write something and then I run it through there, I don't write anywhere near that. I'm writing at college level most of the time.
That's my boy, right?
I mean, if I'm because I don't write the way I talk, right? I think I talk at about 8th grade level or 9th grade level or something like that.
I think you talk at college level, Butch. I need to break it to you.
That's very erudite of you to say. So I'm sure I misused that word. All right, hey, so let's get back to this, man. So Akkala is this planet that has a Federation science team, and they got to go there and take some supplies. And they have this cool new underwater capable shuttle, the Cousteau, that they're going to take there. Calypso. Thank you. So you're thinking the John Denver song, then, are you?
Well, I mean,
is it the Calypso or is it the Cousteau?
Well, now I'm wondering, but I thought it was the Calypso.
It might be. I kept writing Cousteau.
I could be wrong.
Actually, it's Cousteau. It's Cousteau. Okay. I just looked it up. Yeah.
So that just means I heard Calypso.
You're just asking for our music deep cuts list to have John Denver's Calypso on it, which is a song about the ship Calypso, piloted by John Cousteau.
I probably secretly want to do like a deep dive into Owen Wilson films too, and I don't even realize it. I mean,
I've converted you on somebody, and I take no credit. Unlike Jay, who would sit there and go, "Oh, it's the greatest list." I was like shocked that you guys liked as many of those you liked. So
that was a good list.
All right, so listen, let's get back to it. So they're going to fly a shuttle in space and underwater. In theory, it takes a while for them to get there. We're going to meet. I'm going to say this is a book packed with characters. Unnecessarily, in some cases, we meet a lot of characters that just don't need to be there, and it adds some flavor, I guess. But I mean, you're going to have to pay these actors when they make a film out of this, right? You can't pay all these actors. I like how they wrote a role for Tyrion Lannister in this novel, and then that guy doesn't get used at all, hardly, and it's like so weird. Yes. What'd you think of?
Do you think that's because someone says, "Hey, we'd like you to write a Star Trek novel," and then they all say the same thing, which is, "Well, I don't want to do the obvious and use all these beloved characters.
Yeah.
So I will invent some of my own." Do you think that's what they're doing?
Well, in this case, I think it might be a little bit of him wanting to explore the science and the history and the politics and the military of this other planet, and you're having to stuff all these. To do that, you have to stuff characters from each of those things in there. If they had just focused on two of those things, it might have been a little bit better. I would say it holds up together. It's just, it could have been shorter and a little tighter. The main story, the bad guys in this story are two military strong persons of strong that are trying to take over the reins of government, right? And that's Jenna Vavox
I think the first letter is silent.
Yeah, Jenna Vox and Raylan Hyatt is, and by the way, I went out on a limb and said Amber Heard and Johnny Depp are going to play them.
Nice.
Yes, so I think we all know that relationship ends badly, and so it makes perfect sense for those two to play those characters. Because Jenna Vox is kind of using the sexy sex to have her way, and I think that's a very Amber Heard thing to do. If you're to believe the tabloids and stuff like that. And I wouldn't mind seeing Amber Heard in some of those scenes. So there it is. And then they're using a politician named Farador as their figurehead, their kind of like face on the screen. And they're
Who did you picture?
Who did I picture? You know who I pictured for Farador? I know we can't use him because he was in Star Trek already, but the guy who played Korob in Cat's Paw is who I had in mind.
Oh, he would have been awesome.
Yes, exactly. But if I had to pick a modern actor, I'm going to go way off script, and I'm going to say Jason Alexander from Seinfeld, who played George Costanza.
I love Jason Alexander. I was thinking Toby, what's his face? Not McGuire.
Toby Jones.
Yeah, is he kind of the little dumpy guy who is?
Yeah. Yep, I think that'd be good too.
Or maybe who's the guy? I'm drawing a blank. The guy from the M. Night Shyamalan pick Lady in the Water. Who is that guy?
Oh, Paul Giamatti. Yeah, that would work. Yeah. Although Paul Giamatti has the capability of being a strong presence, and I don't think Farador is supposed to be that. He's
in that case, then what about this pivot? Tell me what you think, Butch. Marky Mark from The Happening.
Why not?
Guys.
It's the grass. It's the trees. Wow. No, I'm back to Owen Wilson again, damn it. All right. So it's political intrigue, military intrigue. Federation Planet, you'd hope would be in better shape than to fall to a military junta. But there it is. They have to cook up a reason for why all this is happening, and it gets too complex. But it's interesting, I'll say.
And we've had precedent. It's kind of fun because it's not an enemy planet. It's presumably part of your own team.
Yes.
Right. This planet.
Exactly.
Usually that's not real dangerous for the Enterprise, but we have seen, for example, the Cloudminders episodes where the Enterprise goes to a supposedly friendly planet and it ain't so friendly.
Walking into a buzzsaw. Actually, you make a good point because that planet is a Federation planet too. So that's probably the parallel to this, right? Is that a Federation planet that has that shouldn't be acting like this is acting like this. There's that. There's a lot of other side characters. There's that whole science team from the Federation. You got Cynthia McPhillips and Enzo Peretti and that alien now Rocky. They just are barely there. The only one of those three that gets any play is like Cynthia, and she's gone after like the first half of the novel. So
no, it's like they dropped that whole plot line.
Yeah, absolutely weird. And then you got the father and daughter team of Zeb and Lisa Kane, and that's
I'm picking
Kanan and Banin, yes.
I'm picking Angelina Jolie.
Yes,
and
John Voight.
And her dad.
John Voight. Yes, that's exactly who I had in mind. Look at you. Plus, again, I want to see her in a swimsuit, so it's all good. So we're definitely on board. There's a whole lot of people from that collegium. They don't need to be there at all. They have a whole round table and they get in arguments. I was like, don't even bother. Yeah, when they introduced the political group, I was like, oh no, don't go down this rabbit hole. Thankfully, they don't. I was like so worried. Now we're gonna have to learn the names of 50 of those guys. And so there's that. And then but probably the new person that we get the most of, aside from Lisa, is Lieutenant Mabry, who's our new kind of furry lieutenant who's going to be on a science mission. She kind of gets to play the new kid in town, the fresh face.
Was she in the anime? I mean, did he use any of his characters from the animated episode?
I don't think so. When he was describing one character as a felinoid, I think that Orion Pirates episode might be the one, or there's another one where they introduced a race called the Kazinti. The Kazinti are feline humanoids
I remember those.
Yeah.
I remember them from the animated
and
series.
so, but I don't think Mabry is one of those, but she's a little fuzzy, and that's kind of cute.
Okay.
And she gets a whole lot. She gets a whole lot of meet cute, and that gives Sulu something to do. But that's about all he gets to do is have the aw shucks moments about, oh, you like chocolate, oh, you're going to be a chocoholic by the end of this episode. Blah blah blah. Oh my, that's right. We got a little chapel in this, a very little chapel in this. And basically everybody has something to do, although Scotty and her are kind of on the sidelines a little bit. And it's a Kirk and McCoy show. They are attached at the hip, this book. And I think it works out pretty good. He explores their relationship in a fairly good way, I think.
Yeah.
So, I have no complaints about how he portrayed any of those characters, I don't think.
But you're right. It's just it's just the briefest, lightest touch on each of these characters, in most cases, and it's like, well, damn, don't even bring them up if you're not going to use them.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's true. But the one thing I think that we have to talk about is the setting of this movie in terms of the time. So this movie is set in the Red Jacket era, right? It's supposed to take place not long after Voyager, right? So a while before Star Trek II, but sometime after Star Trek the Motion Picture. And that's a cool, interesting era to put a novel in, I guess. And in fact, the last chapter is very much loaded up with stuff setting up Star Trek II. So
yes, which I liked, because we are not dealing with Captain Kirk in this one. We're dealing with Admiral.
You beat me to it.
Thank you. Which was fun, and I liked that I do like it when the Star Trek novels say, by the way, this takes place between maybe this episode and this or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they give you, and it is, one of those kind of, not to coin a phrase, lost years types of gaps in between the movies or the show.
Yep.
And spoiler, I did think it was real cool in the last chapter how they sort of brought us up to speed.
Yeah.
And showed us right where this fits.
Yeah. So it ended on an up note. I think I was ready to like it less than I did before they segued into Star Trek II, which is, interestingly enough, that was only a couple novels ago on our list. So that was interesting.
Yeah, that's right.
So, all right. So, so I'm all in all, I'm kind of content to jump into this if you're ready.
Well, I think you mean dive in on a planet that's 98% water, but
I accept your terms, sir. All right. So we meet some pretentious Federation scientists that are under siege on the planet of Akkala, which is a Federation planet. There's people throwing rocks at them, protesting outside their compound and all that stuff. And there's three of them: Cynthia McPhillips and Enzo Peretti and Dr. Nao Rocky, who's an alien. Who they talk a little bit about what kind of an alien is. It doesn't matter because we're going to forget him. So
that's right. I said this, recently in a podcast. I don't remember which one, but I'm starting to get more and more on board with what George Lucas was doing with the opening scroll.
Yeah.
This could have been an opening scroll. Blah, blah, Federation scientists who we're not going to get to know are experiencing this, and here comes the Enterprise. Bang.
Yep.
No. Because these it's a setup, and it's kind of sort of maybe a hint at a MacGuffin, but it goes nowhere. Don't get too invested in the first chapter.
Well,
you can go ahead and have your
I like it. So let's treat chapter 1 like it's a scroll. All right. Okay. So the paragraph 1 of the scroll is about the pretentious scientists. Paragraph 2 is about they're on this planet, Akkala, which has a collegium. They would put collegium in all capitals, which is their scientists, and they're bickering with the Federation scientists. And then paragraph 3 of the scroll would be about Commander Sulu, or Sulu, now a commander, is having a meet cute with a fuzzy girl who he's turning into a chocoholic. And that's our new Lieutenant Mabry. She's all sorts of new, young, and eager, and stuff like that. And then we're going to learn about the shuttle Cousteau, which would be in italics because that's how you write ship names. Is Cousteau is in italics.
Which is cool because I don't remember any other Star Trek underwater episodes.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking the closest we get is Star Trek 4. Yeah. And there is an underwater episode in the animated series. It's not the one this guy wrote, but there's an underwater one. And then I guess Star Trek Into Darkness, the opening scene in that has the Enterprise underwater, right?
which is the most.
And that's about it. That's about all there is. And so.
But isn't that? I mean, that literally is because it looks cool. That's
yes.
why that.
Well, absolutely.
There is no earthly reason.
We got how much of a budget? We got to figure out something cool to do. Let's have it coming out of the ocean. We had it coming out of a cloud in the first movie, out of the ocean in the second movie. Okay, so cool. But I can understand that. The weird. All right, so that's chapter 1. The scroll is chapter 1. So now in chapter 2 starts. We have lost contract with that research team in Akkala. Oh no. So they're still getting rid of the last mission before they start the new mission. So they're going to send Chekhov and Spock on the Cousteau to fly there early and get there early and reach contact, and then the Enterprise will meet them there. What could go wrong, Rob?
Well, it's going to go better than the Strange New Worlds episode we just covered. But yeah, it never goes well.
Yes. Well, I'm thinking Metamorphosis from the original series where, they're hauling the commissioner and they crash on the planet with Cochrane and the cloud of stars and stuff like that.
I like that. That episode has grown on me.
I think it has me too.
And I think maybe it's because it's one you don't see that often.
Yeah.
But also, I think I'm starting more to relate to being in a vehicle with maybe a possibly premenopausal woman who's having hot flight. I don't know. Maybe I'm is that too meta, Butch?
Yeah. Thank you for too much information and also right on point, I think. Yes. So very much so. So, so that's good stuff. So they're going to fly there. Akkala and Chorim share a star system. Akkala is a member of the Federation. Chorim is a planet nearby that is not and does not want to be a member of the Federation, but they have a treaty agreement to let them fish the oceans of Akkala. So
yeah, which they call harvesting. And
yes.
Did this bring up any Bond movies for you, Butch?
You know what it brought up for me is I was thinking Dune is what I was thinking, except instead of harvesters in the sand, it's harvesters in the ocean.
Well, you remember the one Bond movie where we actually got to see boobs? Remember that?
Oh yes.
But it had that. You had knockoff Blofeld, and the thing would just come up and eat ships. Remember that?
Yes.
That's kind of what I was picturing with this thing, and it is described. I mean, it was pretty cool, and I thought it was an interesting idea. This thing comes down and makes mini hurricanes to wipe out any resistance and stir the sea up, and then kind of take a big gulp.
And whatever it takes in there, in terms of extra proteins, then they take advantage of. We learn later that they're harvesting there'll be whales here in there with their on purpose, and maybe some fish folk not on purpose. So that's cool. So there is, but of course, the problem is that the two planets now disagree about that treaty that allows the Chorimi come there and do that. So every time the Chorim ship shows up, then the Akkala send out their boats, and there's some fighting that goes on, and Cousteau gets caught in the crossfire and caught up in the little hurricane, and so it crashes, or rather it has an emergency landing. I feel like you're beating in the bush. Just say it. Crossfire hurricane. Crossfire hurricane. Ooh, yeah. What is that from, by the way?
That's from Jumpin' Jack Flash, Butch.
Oh, that's right. Crossfire hurricane. Well done. I did put Caught in the Crossfire. That is a Stevie Ray Vaughan song. I'm going to go with Jumpin' Jack Flash instead. So that's well done.
Jumpin' Jack
Splash. Really on point tonight, Rob. That is excellent analysis. All right, so they're forced to ditch an abandoned ship, but abandoned ship they do. They make their way to an island beach. They share stories about camping out, and Chekhov mentions marshmallows, and Spock's like, "What's a marshmallow?" We're gonna get a callback to that in a couple movies, baby.
And that's the scene where I texted you and I was like, "Hey, I have a problem on page 38 because Chekhov says, do Vulcan kids sit under campfires and look at the Vulcan moons?" And Spock was like, "Yeah, totally." And we all know that that Vulcan has no moon. Now, Butch, I wanted to mention this. So when I read that, I was like, "What? I thought Vulcan didn't have any moons." So I double checked.
Yeah. Yep. You don't just announce that. You double check before you announce things. And good for you.
That's partly because I'm 53 and senility is creeping up. And
we can all hear Nichelle Nichols saying, "Why am I not surprised?" We can hear
right.
So,
I checked and it was like, yes, indeed, there is no moon. Vulcan has no moon. Then I saw an interesting article that had a fun theory to explain why Vulcan has no moons, and yet you see moons in, I think, what you were talking about, the motion picture.
Yeah.
And that fan theory, which I don't buy, but I thought was interesting, someone came up with it, was that Vulcan is a moon.
Oh, interesting.
And that's why when you see a planet getting destroyed in the reboot, it's because that's why you would see it from standing on the with the planet or whatever.
Yes.
And it was kind of a fun little theory. I thought that was interesting, and whatever nerd came up with this had a big long explanation about like a binary star system.
A fun theory when in reality it's J.J. Abrams, and that's the reason it happened.
Yes,
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, for what it's worth. All right, so now having camped out for a little while, Spock and Chekhov get captured by a guy named Zev, who's a freedom fighter of some sort and is not afraid to kill primates and eat them. Ew, I guess there's that.
You know what I didn't like about this scene, though, Butch?
What's that?
Again, they start off, they get captured.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a problem. I don't expect Spock even loses a moment's sleep over that, because they get captured every episode. They get taken into a deep, scary cave. The guy's like, I will execute you if you try any funny business. Okay. Yep. Then they just kind of bag it. You know what? Never mind. You're not in danger. You're not, we're just going to like, did that seem kind of weird to you? Like, there was no, like, how did they get out of this? It just was like, yeah, never mind. We're not going to be in the cave. We're not holding you prisoner, and just forget it.
Well,
I mean, they were.
I guess it could be that it was a guy who's not really a bad guy, but pretending to be a bad guy. And so he's like, yeah, he gives up on trying to be the heavy. But yeah, I think it just doesn't make any sense. You're right.
Yeah. All
right. So as we move on, then Kirk eventually arrives on the planet and makes contact with the science team. And she tells him that that Chekhov and Spock never checked in with them. So they do some sweeps of the planet, but it's a big planet. I'm thinking it's a big planet, but how many metal things are floating around in the ocean? You should be able to find that. Come on, man.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I get it. Yeah, they have to come. So they're going to need help searching. So they beam down to the cloistered tower on the in the capital city. They're going to talk to the publican, the head overlord. His name is Abin Feridor, and his military advisor, Jenna Vox, or Vuvavoom, as it were, I guess. I'm unnecessarily picturing her as hot. I think she's just kind of like supposed to be like a tough military.
Well, she was also using her body for nefarious purpose. So I think it is implied that she was smoking oxygen.
It's wicked wiles, yes, for sure. Exactly. So there's that, and they quickly arrive at the conclusion that they don't know which of the two of them is actually in charge, because there's too many. Gina Gershon, that works. I think Gina Gershon would work for sure. Yes.
All right, cool.
Yes. So they think maybe she's in charge, and we're going to learn as things go on that that's more true than even they can appreciate.
Sharon Stone?
I think I never pictured anybody with dark hair, even though I pictured Amber Heard with dark hair. So we're going back and forth. Chekhov and Spock are still prisoners. They're trying to divide and conquer them. They're like, yeah, Chekhov already admitted that you guys are spies and working against us and stuff like that. Yeah, he said Pavel Ilyovich, and because Spock realized that he was sending him code, Chekhov was, because he gave him a fake middle name, kind of a thing. It's Pavel Andreevich, as we all know, of course.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. That they're kind of they show kind of their Starfleet training and/or their familiarity with each other, that they could kind of not be divided and conquered like that. Then we get some more cute Sulu and Mabry stuff. Blah blah blah. She's an Erithian, by the way, if you're wondering what that was.
I don't feel like you're selling our listeners on how much fun the author had with the Chocoholic.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, so she never had chocolate before, and apparently Sulu is a big fan of chocolate, and it's like, and if you're not a big fan of chocolate, it means you haven't tried chocolate. And I kind of agree with that. I mean, I have one of my kids doesn't really like chocolate, which is weird. Um, but uh, but I think that's a human and a humanoid trait, right? If you're a humanoid, you're
Yeah.
gonna like chocolate, so that's fair. And they do play. I'm just disappointed that it just kind of like got dropped off and they never came back to it. So
Yeah.
I was like expecting Sulu to like be getting with that. So, but it doesn't matter. Getting a little strange fur. I don't know exactly how that works.
I was expecting. Nah, I don't even want to say it, but
Thank
I
you.
was
All
expecting them to have the sometimes you feel like a nut argument. Mounds versus almond joy. Too soon? Is that too
That
soon?
it's a little too soon. Yes. All
Okay.
right. So then Kirk and Bones actually meet the science team in person. They relate that they have found signs on the planet of well, you're supposed to report this other stuff. What's this stuff? Well, we found signs of a new life form and new civilization, as it turns out. So Kirk says, "Well, it's time to boldly go find out some more stuff about that." And they do, or they start planning that. We learn about how there's scientists at the Collegium don't trust the scientists from the Federation, and it becomes pretty clear to us, the reader, before it becomes clear to Kirk and the others that the politicians and the military junta are playing off the scientists against each other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that takes them a while to figure that out, and then we meet our other a new crew member, Ensign Greenberger. She's the blonde girl whose hair keeps getting in her face. Uh, I'm gonna say Jennifer Aniston for that. I'm thinking
I could
the
see
hair
that.
gets in her face, so I keep thinking she would go and blow the hair out of her face. That feels like a Jennifer Aniston thing.
I could see it. I was thinking Kelly Bundy, but now you mentioned
That
it, I
works
could.
too. Yes, I think so. The blonde hair, where you're going and having to blow the hair out of your face, because he says it like 3 or 4 times. She got the blonde lock of hair in her face. So I was like, man, tie a hairband around that or something. Whatever.
Yeah, is that a regulation
Yeah.
haircut?
And we get reports from her. It's still regulation. We get reports from her because the Tarini are back making another fishing expedition. And every time they do, the boats come out and they give us a little bit of conflict, and we don't really know why there's conflict yet. We're going to learn that slowly. It's a slow reveal, and that's cool. So now we're going to meet more new characters. God helped us. The Perceptor of the planet, Lisa Kane. She's the Perceptor of the Collegium. We learned a lot more about the Collegium than I cared to really remember for this, but the Collegium was formed 500 years ago. It's when they turned to science, and they're like pure science and thought and research and stuff. Essentially, what I do for a living, which means I find it boring as hell to read about it, which is strange. Uh, you'd
Well,
think I
and
gravitate to that, but
well, I'm sure that you were also upset to learn that their rivals were Boise State, right? Nobody wants to hear that. I
thank
did
you.
not want to
I
read that.
appreciate you pointing that out. That's right. So I wrote down that they are an educated but motley crew of fellow scientists, eggheads, in strife with pretty much everyone. The planet, the military, the government, the other Federation scientists, each other. And it's weird because they kind of give he tries to like give them a little bit of there's like 6 of them. He tries to give each of them a little bit of character, which is weird. And he makes one of them a midget, and he makes the midget one kind of like the sellout, kind of like nobody likes him. I was like, that's all. I mean, we're back in that era where if you have somebody who's physically different, they're gonna be kind of like the serial killer.
Yeah,
And I think we're
and
not there
that
anymore.
and that makes sense in movies where you need to tell people apart and stuff like that. I think it makes more sense in a visual
Yeah,
medium, but in a book, it's different.
yeah,
Um,
something. Yeah,
I will say I did like with all the palace intrigue, basically of Feridor and what's her face, Fox or whatever her
yeah,
name is. Um, I was getting a kind of a cool Game of Thrones vibe,
yes,
a little bit. But the Collegium stuff, boring, and
yes.
and also Dad's been missing, and we're at odds. That you don't. I don't need flashing red alert signs to know that this is going to come back later. And spoiler: the payoff was not worth it. But
Can I admit something to you? I was
yeah,
thinking the same thing that it's going to come back later, but then when they reveal that the guy who took Spock hostage is her dad, I had kind of lost track of that, and so I was like, "Oh wait, what?" That shouldn't have been that hard to see coming, but I didn't see it coming because I think I'm just distracted by all the characters. It's like, which is maybe the point, right? He's throwing so much stuff at you that you're not really, you lose track of some of them, and so the reveal can kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot about that guy because I've introduced 40 characters since that guy.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna say that's not great writing in my opinion.
I'm okay
Although
with it.
it sounds like I'm shitting on this book. I was enjoying the book, but I don't really like that strategy. I think in a book, especially with we have some established characters we know. Don't give us 20 we don't know now.
Yeah.
Give us 2 or 3.
Well, yeah.
Right.
But at least we know that Lisa here is going to be a character we're going to stay with for a lot. So Lisa's going to go see Farador, and it turns out Kirk and McCoy are going to go back and see Farador. This time they're both left waiting for a long time, and they eventually end up being stuck waiting together. And she's like, "Oh, you're the Federation. You were the one sent here to intimidate us by the government." And Kirk's like, "What the hell? Does everybody just distrust everybody?" And I guess it lends itself to a planet like this where people don't trust each other. You can see how that kind of spirals out of control, and they wouldn't trust anybody. I guess where everybody's doing everybody else dirty, and so nobody trusts nobody. It kind of feels like ripped from today's headlines, I guess.
It did feel ripped from today's headlines a lot, but I'm not to belabor the point. That's an 8th grade word, I believe. In a Star Trek novel, do I want more Lisa or Spock? I don't know.
Fair.
Okay.
That's fair. Okay, I'm gonna give you that. That's the whole thing. So McCoy brings. I said McCoy begins the slow, arduous Southern Charm offensive on Lisa. It's going to be a long climb up, and we learned about something called the Cape Alliance, which is we probably have put together. That's supposed to be the guys who've been going out and like who captured Spock and Chekhov. Maybe that's those guys. I don't think they named themselves as the Cape Alliance to Spock and Chekhov, but it's still there's still empty promises about Chekhov and Spock. Yeah, we're still looking, wink, but we haven't found them, wink, wink. But we'll keep looking, wink. But no, you can't look either. Leave it to us. We'll do the job, wink.
Hey, Butch, do you remember when we met? Right? Was
Yeah.
that 8th grade or 9th grade?
It was 9th grade, yeah.
Okay, 9th grade. I don't know if you remember this. I had a shirt. I don't know why I had this shirt, but it said, frankly, scallop, I don't give a clam. Do you remember that shirt?
I remember you telling me about it. I don't remember the shirt, but I remember you telling me about it.
Don't you feel like they should have had, in a seafood planet like this, they should have had, because they don't really have an antebellum South on a planet that's 2% land, but you could have that shirt, I think, at least.
Absolutely, at least have some references to this.
I mean, what are the college kids wearing? I mean, they got to have something cool like that.
It's the collegium, and those collegium people do not seem cool at all. I'm not gonna lie. So this is a chapter where we learned that Vox is using her wicked wiles to control both the publican from the planet and her like number 2, who's actually the number 1 military guy. But he's her number 2, as it were. She's a top, he's a bottom. That's really what I'm trying to say.
It totally felt like Cersei and whatever the other dude's name was from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But for a pocket Trek book, for a Bantam, all bets are off in the Bantam books. You want to have rape. Yes. You want to have orgies. Not a problem.
Yep.
But in pocket books, you don't really get a lot of explicit references to. Maybe explicit's not the right word, to sex. Yeah. The author points out a few times that they're balling. So
and she's using those opportunities. It's pretty and that's good because you would lose something if you're trying to imply that without saying it at least a little bit. So they're saying at least a little bit. So she's running the show. We the reader know she's the one running the show now, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's good. I guess Spock and McCoy or Kirk and McCoy are wondering, but we know. So now, next chapter, hey, guess who's drinking coffee and hot chocolate and doing the cute lower deck thing? It's Sulu and Mabry again. So good for them, I guess. And we have somehow lost contract now with the Akkala scientists and the Earth scientists again.
Well, Butch, I'm a little surprised at you because one of the reasons you're so beloved by the Star Trek universe. I'm pretending like we have listeners. Is your hashtags, right?
Yeah.
Bureaucrats are the worst.
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Admiral Kirk was really surprised and upset to find that he was getting no help, no cooperation, none, and really an adversarial vibe from the planetary rulers.
Yep.
Right.
Adversarial.
So I enjoyed that because that is also classic Trek.
For sure. Right? Yeah, it's the bureaucrats are the worst, right? So for sure. I'm thinking Mark of Gideon, right? Those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much so. Yeah. That definitely feels what they're going for here. And now maybe that's the guy who I should have picked is the bald guy from Mark of Gideon is the guy who's Farador. Maybe that's
that guy was great.
Yes.
He would not comply with any request, no matter how reasonable. Well,
and by the way, we say great. He's good at not being likable, right? Yeah. He's not likable, but that's the role he's playing, and he plays it well, right?
Yes.
So we're giving credit to that. We can give credit
to. You want to punch your TV every time he's on.
That's right. All right. So because they've lost contact with the science, they're going to send Mabry down with a security team. Santana and Vlastikovich, by the way, if you're playing at home. And they're going to go seek somebody who's vandalized their science compound at the Collegium, but they're going to go in there and they're going to find some interesting stuff. I believe they find some bones in the science lab. The bones look similar to an Akkala, but they're from a ocean dweller. Now that's
bones.
What's that?
Bones, not to be confused with bones.
Oh, they do confuse me a couple times in this, right? It's like when Mabry says bones and she's talking to McCoy, it's very confusing. I was like, she doesn't get to do that. Why'd they capitalize bones there? Anyway, so yeah, and then we get also a brief mention that the Trimi and Akkala have had an agreement for fishing, but that's been long broken, and they're not getting along and stuff like that. So that's just an interesting detail that's there. We do get some more discussion of the life form. Every time I write life form, I write it in all caps because it's very important. It's kind of like the most important thing Star Trek does. Oh, there's a new life form. Stop everything else. We got to figure out the new life form. It's a Star Trek tradition, so that's good. Yeah. So then I love that Lisa, is falling to Bones' charm offensive, as it were, and she keeps calling him a very logical man, and Kirk has fun with that. And then when Spock hears it later, I'm imagining. We've already seen Ethan Peck in the new Star Trek series do almost a spit take. I'm imagining Leonard Nimoy doing a spit take when she says logically, what? Got my Pomic soup all over my wall now. Thank you very much.
I was just thinking Pomic soup. Yeah, that's funny.
So now we need to search for Spock. Hashtag search for Spock.
Nice.
And we have to search for Chekhov and evidence of this new species. We're doing all the searches. It's great. And then they get the full cold shoulder from Farador and Vox, and now they're getting threats from them too. It's like, no, we're not going to meet with you, and you better not do any searching of your own, or what? I don't know what they're threatening them with. I will say, yeah. Go ahead.
They were saying, if you try to interfere with your starship, we will play Starship.
Yeah.
And so Kirk backed down.
So it's interesting because I think what you're seeing here is you're seeing these guys are people who are the most powerful people on their planet, and they overestimate their power or underestimate Kirk's power, right? So I mean, they don't ever play the card of the Prime Directive, which is how like guys like the guy on Bread and Circuses plays Kirk like a fiddle because they're a Federation. I mean, there's no Prime Directive to play. It's like we're Federation members, and if Kirk's like, well, we think the Federation Council would work on our side, and that's the whole thing. This book becomes we have to be able to convince the Federation Council of this so that so that the Federation Council will make them comply.
It was kind of interesting because we're used to seeing Kirk bluff or reason or do something, and he's really just kind of like, hey man, if you don't knock it off, you could potentially face some sanctions down there. You know, like it was really limp.
Yeah, they just did not bring the heavy until later in the game, and then they bring the heavy, and then the heavy. I mean, they start shooting phasers at him. That's when they finally gets. So he reaches his point at some point where he can't do it anymore. So they find the wreck of the Cousteau, and they find evidence that Spock and Chekhov escaped the craft, and so they figure, well, they're alive. They're alive. They took some supplies, so let us know. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Get tired of
that. Yeah, and then they take a trip to the Collegium. Hey, I hear it's homecoming week at the Collegium, so that'll be fun.
I think they're playing BYU. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
And unfortunately, the government declares martial law level 1, by the way. And so the Collegium all the Collegium members are under arrest. That's a problem. Farador is getting pee-whipped by Jenna Vox, I wrote. They find and destroyed the bones that we had heard about earlier. So that's kind of a sad story, which means our heroes are going to have to find new bones now.
Well, and basically throughout this, there's these occasional vague hints about some kind of mermaid-ish life, Atlantis or something, right?
Yeah.
Isn't
Yes. Hey, can I throw my favorite little my favorite little bit of information that our author gives in this book? When they're like,
this is our podcast, man.
when they're like, hey, mermaids, and Spock's like, really? I mean, isn't it kind of trite to use mermaids? They're fictional things from Earth. You should really use the Loch Ness Monster because that actually was found. We actually found plesiosaurs in Scotland. And they're like, holy shit, Loch Ness Monster's real in the Star Trek universe. Holy shit.
That was fun. Yeah, I do remember that.
that was my favorite little side, just little colorful detail that they added, which is Loch Ness Monster is real. Bigfoot's not real. Loch Ness Monster real. So it's cool. Um, so they're going to use Spock and Chekhov. Are now political pawns of Farador. He has brought them in. And so they're going to use him. And they're going to put him in the bag, put the bag on him until it's time to use them. So we got that going for us. And now that means that Spock and Chekhov are to appear before the Continental Synod. Hey, that's Congress, I'm assuming, right? Purely as a power, as pawns, rather, given that they don't have a right to say anything or answer any questions. We meet briefly Denze Mord. He's the Grand Poobah or something. I don't know exactly what they called him.
Answer the question. Don't wait for the translation.
There we go. Fair. So there's a guy who's a little unnecessary, but he soon ends up a prisoner because they declare martial law level 3. So now they arrest all the members of their Continental Synod too, and now that they have control, Jenna's two guys start getting jealous about each other. So Rellin says, we should just kill Farador," and she's like, "No, we can't kill Farador." And then she makes some veiled comments about how he's better in bed than Rellin is, which is like, I mean, that she really knows how to control these guys.
She's asked for trouble.
Knows just the right buttons and the right levers to pull, as it were.
She was going full. I hate to say this. This is a kid-friendly podcast, but she was going all Kearns here.
Yeah. The big guns. He brings out the big guns. That's right. So they say the words. Vox and Farador are saying the words, but nobody believes them anymore. That everybody knows that these guys are just power grabbing at this point, right? And the whole world is like open to but now they're in a position of power where nobody can do anything about it either. So Spock and Chekhov get a quick view of kind of the water torture that awaits them if they don't comply and admit that they're guilty.
Interesting. They were waterboarding this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And Spock's like, I can hold my breath for a long time. I don't know what the problem is. And they're like, how about your buddy Chekhov there? Chekhov's like, Russians can do it too. If there's one thing we know, Chekhov screams really good. There's one thing we know. So
I do think the author did a good job with Chekhov in this book.
Yes.
I mean, you get little glimpses into his character. He's not just a name like so many of the other characters.
I agree. I think I agree with that. And I like the idea that they're pairing the two of them together because a lot of times, Chekhov is the science guy. That's his first appearance, the first filmed appearance he appears in at Spock Station, right? And so having him as a science guy makes sense, and having him as be a mentee of Spock's makes sense.
It was kind of interesting though, because a lot of what Chekhov was doing initially was piloting stuff, and that's usually Sulu's purview. If I use that word correctly.
Chekhov does the navigating, and then Sulu does the piloting, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah, but in this case, Chekhov is piloting basically a submarine through space.
Right, which is what ships really kind of are too. But this is literally submarine, underwater spaceship is literally. So I guess we have to call it a submarine in space. You're right. So a couple of things happen though, which is somebody makes an assassination attempt on Farador. Kirk actually comes in and saves the day, and I wrote Kirk saves the day, and then I was like, actually, no, Bones saves the day. Bones is the one who zaps the bad guy. The bad guy turns out to be Relin, who's Farador's competition for Jenna Vox.
Yeah. I do want to say, Butch, for as much as our boys are getting thrown in various jail cells and prison cells, we can't do the tried and true, we've got the planetary shields up. I mean, there's no reason not to be beaming in and out of there all the time. Yeah. That really drove me crazy. About the third or fourth time that they just beamed in and out, and then at other times they're just like rotting in cells and stuff. I was like, fucking just say that the planetary shields are up. Then nerds like me are not going to be aggravated here.
That seems fair.
What's next? You're going to throw a synth in there? I mean, I'm getting riled.
Not the synth. Don't do that. All right. So let's see. So Relin is the assassin who tries to kill Farador because he's jealous, I guess. Yeah, it is pathetic, and he gets the correct response because Jenna just basically has him killed for it. She's like, "Yeah, your fate's already decided. You're already dead." And then she walks out, and the bad guys come in and to kill him and stuff like that. So that's cold. Good for her.
Well, I think she just shot him, right? She just went out and grabbed a gun.
Oh, that's right. She came in with a gun and shot him. That's right. Yeah. So there was that.
But do you remember when we were doing Noir November before Jay killed it? And we did. Oh God, which one was it? Oh, The Postman Always Rings Twice. Remember that, Butch?
Yes.
And the guy that voiced Fred Flintstone tried to. Yeah, he tried to blackmail John Garfield, and Garfield slapped the shit out of him for like 30 seconds. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Classic. That is how inept this leader has been portrayed for the whole book. So it feels like you could come in and just walk up and slap him to death. That's what a pussy this guy is. You have the leader of the palace guard or whatever, wearing a hood to make him, mysterious. He can't kill this guy with a dagger.
Come on, man. Yeah, I mean, he literally is like he's literally walking across all the broken twigs from the Little House episode. Yeah,
it was brutal. I mean, it really was. It was like, but you have lost all credibility, sir. You've slipped on a banana peel and stabbed yourself in the dick or something. It was really embarrassing.
Well, he's kind of showing that he's an inept leader, right? I mean, if this is about anything, it's about their leaders, and their military leaders are kind of inept because he's her boss, and she's clearly the brains and the muscle behind the operation. So she killing him makes a lot of sense to me, I think. So then let's see. So now Zev and Spock and Chekhov are prisoners, but they engineer an overthrow of the boat that they're on, taking them to a prison island. So now they're free. Let's go find Enterprise and get beamed up. And he's like, no, we're getting alert. There's another Tarimi ship harvester coming in. So we got to immediately divert and go stop that because Zev's a zealot, right? He's a zealot. He's like, these guys are, they should have just called them Greenpeace. Is this Greenpeace, right? It's like they come in there. There's a trawler over there, and they're like waving their banners from the Greenpeace ship.
They're throwing tomato soup on priceless works of art. They're gluing their hands to the streets. I mean, they are.
Fair enough. So they're off to do that, and they're going to get shipwrecked as a result of that. So the harvester cracks up one of the ships. I don't know if it's theirs, but the bottom line is they beam aboard survivors, the Enterprise does, and who is among the survivors? Spock and Chekhov, and Zev are among the survivors. And then we find out Zev is Lisa Kane's dad, and I was like, what? Yeah, I did not see that coming. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. So now they decide that they gotta Cousteau's got to go search for the map. They find some maps. They study them. Zev knows this stuff. He's like, I think I know where we can look to find out if there's more bones, since our bones have been taken. And even though Bones is sitting in that chair right over there, we're going to go look for Bones. And so they get Cousteau all repaired. Scotty does, and they go set off for Bones.
I know you're on a roll here.
I'm on a roll.
I would be remiss if I didn't say that Bones correctly said, "Keep my name out your motherfucking mouth."
That's exactly right. Or he, at least in our minds, he did. Darn it.
Yeah.
So they go out in the Cousteau in the search for underwater people. They find some living nets that nearly sink their submarine. They find three-tailed whales with beaks that eat the living nets and help them into the surface. What an adventure! It's an adventure. I'm like, do you think you don't brief Chekhov's the one, whoever's piloting this thing, don't you tell him, by the way, if you go down there and you see this big ass net looking thing, don't go towards it, you know?
Well, you know what here's what I was thinking, because I was reading this. It was interesting, and I thought the author did a good job of describing all this nonsense.
Yes, I thought so too.
I'm thinking, you've written a Star Trek book on a water planet. You have a cool cover. It is a cool cover.
Yeah.
With the three-tailed, the three-fin tail coming out of the water,
Fluke.
and this cool, I don't know, ice, Fortress of Solitude coming out of the water,
yes.
and stuff. And yet you have spent 2/3 of the book describing local planetary politics, which is mildly interesting, but it's
burying the lead. You're burying the lead, yes.
Books, right? Yep. And so I would have liked more of this kind of stuff. This is like a 10-page thing you're describing, right?
Yeah.
The cool journey through the water. They're going to kind of do a rush job, like, oh shit, I'm coming up on 300 pages. Let's wrap it up. I would have liked more of the Waterworld type stuff and less of the how's Parliament going today stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Especially since they're selling it to you. And again, to the extent I remembered anything about this novel, it was not the politics stuff. It was the underwater stuff. So yeah, and that's true. But we do get a little bit of it here. And this is where you're getting the underwater stuff, because not only do we have an underwater shuttle, but then we have underwater suits that breathe like gills through the suits and stuff like that. It's all really interesting tech and stuff like that. So here's the thing. You're going to go out of the ship and you have two sets of suits, and there's like 6 people in this thing, and 2 of them are from Akkala. One of them really, really wants to go, but you're not going to let that guy go. And 2 of them are scientists that you have on board, but you're not going to let either of them go. Kirk's going to go. And I was like, is this Shatner insisting that he gets the action scenes again? Because why is Kirk the one in this suit? I mean, if nothing else, he's 50 years old, right? So it's like, it feels
there
like...
was no reason for him to do this.
Yeah.
None.
Yep. So it's all good. So at least we agree on that. So so they go in there and they find, what do they find in there? Bones. A lot of bones. It's like a boneyard in there. So then they take some of the bones, which feels a little sacrilegious to me. I mean, I think, but you know.
You thought the planetary leaders' quarters were a boneyard. This is a boneyard, right?
Yes, Butch. This is like the crypts underneath Paris. So many bones, right? And so they study these bones and they realize that the bones that look like they're from a Collins, but a Collins that live underwater. So they're essentially the same bones we saw before, but it's still not enough proof to take the Federation Council or the planetary government. So they got to find some more. And they learned long ago. There's islands that were long ago contaminated. Maybe that's a cover story. We learned that long ago they started doing circumcisions sort of on every colon to take out some unneeded gland. It's like if we took out appendixes at age 6 days. So and we learned that the reason they take them out is so that people don't turn into fish people at age 35 or whatever, right? So
yeah, I thought that was strange.
Yeah, but I guess there's historical Earth like you said, the Jewish circumcision thing is a perfect example of things. It's like, why did they start doing that? There's seemingly no reason that we can think of why they started doing that, other than, and so in this case, at least they had a reason to start doing this weird thing.
And all kidding aside, that is the number one most compelling piece of evidence, I think, in favor of the existence of God, because I cannot imagine any other reason to come up with the idea of, hey, let's get off our fork.
Yeah. Well, at least you did it at 8 days old. I mean, the idea is if you wanted to convert, that's a barrier to conversion, is what that is.
They do that now, but I mean, that first crew wasn't 8 days old. They were in their 30s or whatever doing that shit.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So now, let's see. So now we're going to go to these islands that were reported to be contaminated by these early energy tests or whatever, but now we find that some of those islands aren't as contaminated as they thought they were. So we're going to go there. It's cold there. It's up in the northern region, and there are some alien coyotes and space yaks, and also some Akkalans living up north, and they have all this Stone Age technology that's kind of impressive. And they're
they're
living.
They're very the Apple, right? They're
Oh
very
yeah.
like, hey, welcome to our village. We don't know you, but it's cool.
Yes, Vol tells us what to do. Exactly. Yeah, look at all the parallels we're drawing here, because I think you're right. That's an Apple type thing. So then they learn that these people transform later in life, and they're like, now we've putting it all together, aren't we? Yes.
But you have to give me this joke. It's lame, but I can't help it.
All right. That's the best kind.
If there's one thing we need more of in Star Trek, I've said it a million times, it's vols. Thank you.
Vols.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I can't help it.
All right, so now having visited those islands, they know kind of what happens, right? They know that at some point there's no old people on these islands, because at some point they turn into merfolk and join the people in the sea, right? It's called the senescence, is what it's called.
There's no what?
Old people.
What do we call old people in Star Trek, Butch?
Oh, grups. There's no grups, of course.
You.
Yeah, once you reach a certain age. Yes, thank you. Another parallel, of course. So Miri.
This is a contract year for you, Butch. Don't you want to get your 3% raise? What are you doing?
I know. It's late at night. It's late at night. I'm not at the top of my game. I'm glad you're here to pick up the pieces for me.
I'm giddy.
Yes.
I really am. I'm like, I have the house to myself. I was watching Strange New Worlds before we did the podcast.
Ooh.
I mean, I'm on cloud 9.
We're doing that episode this weekend, I assume, right?
Yeah. So. Yep, that's right.
All right, so let's see. So now, having gathered all this information and figured out how this is going to work, it's time for some serious violation of medical ethics. Let's do it. Let's get on board. Zev wants to undergo the surgery, and he's already undergone the surgery. He wants to undergo the artificial hormone therapy. He wants to do a transition. God, I'm glad Jay is not here for this podcast, dude, because it's supposed to be rough.
Something affirming.
Yes, yeah, it's gill affirming surgery, blowhole affirming surgery. I guess it's not gills; they got blowholes. And so they figure Zev volunteers to undergo the transformation, and then he and Lisa kind of like reconnect a little bit over it. She seems like she would be on board with this. She helps accelerate it, which is even more unethical. He barely survives that, and all of a sudden he can't even talk anymore, because now his trachea doesn't go past his larynx anymore.
That is very Star Trek, though.
Like, oh yeah.
Hey, we can't wait for this. I'm going to go ahead and risk it. I'm going to try it. Guinea pig myself.
McCoy totally would have done that if the occasion called for it. So it's good. But that was young McCoy, I guess. So there's that. So and then we see so he's transforming, and meanwhile we get one last view of Farador, who's looking at the world that he's wrought, and he's regretting it. That's the last we're going to see of Farador, almost. Because now we get the big action finale right here in chapter 11. So we're back to the Cousteau. They're taking Zev to the fisherman, Zev the fishman, rather, to the ocean depths so that he can meet some more mermaids. Hopefully they're going to meet them there. But of course they get caught between the warring factions again for like the fourth time in this book. It's like, do these confrontations always happen right where the Cousteau happens to be? That is very odd. It's a big planet, right?
It's a big planet of water, and it's all happening in
Yeah.
this one little area.
It's like why do the kaiju keep coming to Tokyo? It's just like that, really. So so now we learned that the merfolk have telepathy also. So Spock has suddenly developed an ability to communicate with Zev, which is good because Zev can't talk. And even if he could, he's underwater and a long ways away, so he can't talk. So they're communicating by telepathy. All looks lost. Zev might be drowning, but then a whale saves Zev, brings him back up so he can get some more air. And then the Enterprise wins a stare down with first a Chirimi harvesting vessel, and then they win a stare down with the Akkalans too, all thanks to some tight phaser firing by Sulu, who finally gets something to do something besides flirt. He's shooting phasers accurately, making him dance like Buford Tannen shooting at
right.
Marty McFly's feet.
I was thinking Spider from Goodfellas. Dance for me, Spider.
Yeah, either way, I think it's really the same thing. And so they get them both to back down. Farador is the one who finally makes the call, even though Vox is out on the ship's going, no, we're not giving up. And he's like, yeah, we are. And then her new lieutenant cold cocks her, saps her from behind with a rifle butt to the head. It's like, yeah, we're following orders. Let's go back to base. That's the last we see of poor Jenna Vox. It's getting a shot to the back of the head. She got donkey punched.
Yeah, and I will say the author really scapegoated the shit out of her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he sort of kind of thought about maybe kind of almost redeeming Farador. Not this lady.
Nope. Well, somebody's got to take the fall for it. It's not going to be a politician. That's how this works, right? So now all we learned about what's happening in the last chapter is that there's a mediation team sent there to wrap up the whole thing. They'll be fine. That's very Star Trek. It's like we're just going to jet away. They'll be fine. We're going to come back. We'll never come back here again. And we learned that Kirk's going to go teach at the academy. We learned that he's going to have for the Enterprise to Spock, and Spock's like, "I'll do it, but only if we turn into a training ship." Yep. And then, by the way, Chekhov, you're not going to get to stay. You're going to go to the Reliance. So, congratulations on that.
Yeah, we found out you're afraid of caves, so you're going to go with Terrell, and we'll see if you encounter any dangerous stuff in the next movie.
And so his last word to Enterprise is "Dos Vidania Lobima," which is like a goodbye, old girl, or something like that. So,
were you hoping for a Rocky IV type of ending? And if views can change, and if eyes can change,
we all can change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like there was missed opportunities here, Butch.
There were, but I think that I agree. We talked about it earlier. I like how they landed it by doing the connection to what's going to happen in Star Trek 2. They did that with Kirk and with Spock and with Chekhov and with the Enterprise. So that's great. So that's how the book ends. And now we've completed our 8th Star Trek novel. So that means it's time to rank our Star Trek novels, Rob.
That's true. So I had it opened up here to that page, and then I dropped my binder. So give me a second. And for our listener, fictional as he may be, you may have noticed a discrepancy last time with how many Romulan books we had.
Yes.
We sorted that out, right, Butch?
That's right. We did not do the Romulan way. We did My Enemy, My Ally.
Right. So suddenly my number 2 favorite book that we've done so far vanished.
Well, that's fun. All right. So here's my list. I'll give you my list first. So I have from 8 to 1. I have the Klingon Gambit still at 8. Again, the Romulans are running gambits. I don't know what the Klingons doing, but it wasn't a gambit. I have Doctor's Orders at 7. I have Corona at 6. Not too far away from the one we did last time, the 3-Minute Universe at 5. I have this book, Deep Domain, just above the 3-Minute Universe at 4. And I think it's mostly on the basis of how well they did the characters and how well they did a transition in the setting, and not based on the coherence of the story and or the number of extraneous characters. It made it to 4 despite those things. So then above that is Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, the novelization. The movie is always number 1 in our hearts. And then I have Web of the Romulans at 2 and My Enemy, My Ally at number 1. So,
all right.
What do you got?
I'm with you. I thought about it, and I put the Klingon Gambit at 8.
Yep.
I've waffled on these two. 7, I have Doctor's Orders. I have this one, Deep Domain, at 6. I enjoyed reading it. It's not that I didn't enjoy reading it, but
Sure.
But it is not memorable, as evidenced by the fact that, less than a week after finishing it, I barely remembered it.
Yeah, that's true.
And there is a lot of stuff that barely gets touched on that I would have liked more, and there is way too much of some other stuff that I didn't care about.
It's never a good combination.
Yeah. At 5, I have Web of the Romulans, and I think the reason I ranked it higher was there was some cool shit in Web of the Romulans. We got to learn a little bit about Romulan culture.
Yep.
There was like a bloodbath battle scene on a Romulan starbase or something.
Yeah.
And in the weird, creepy Vulcan,
oh yeah, the hive mind kind of thing that was being created.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool and creepy, and hey, we need to take this fucking genetic material, whatever it is, back to Vulcan and do something. I mean, I was like, geez, it's kind of crazy. So I do have it ahead of this one.
Yeah.
I have Corona at 4, and again, Corona had some interesting stuff too.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Star Trek 2 at 3.
Yeah.
The 3-Minute Universe, which we just did a couple weeks ago, at 2, and then My Enemy, My Ally, pretty comfortably ahead at 1 right now.
Yeah, I think so. So that's pretty good. We're a little different, but not too different, so that's great. So now, you know what that means? I have the dice in my hand, Rob. The dice are going to decide our next novel, if you're ready.
Sweet.
Here we go. Rolling the dice. It is, 35. So you know what number 35 is? The Romulan Way. It's number 35. It
was meant to be, Butch.
And so we've been talking about how we had it accidentally other, and now it's come up. So the number 35 is our 9th Star Trek novel, The Romulan Way. That'll be our next Star Trek novel to read, ladies and gentlemen.
All is bright with the universe. It's like when we ranked that we did the best list in the history of anything and did the episodes, and we had the one episode that was right in the middle that we were torn on wildly.
How we knew we'd done it right.
Okay. Yes. So it's meant to be. You cannot go against the dice. The dice know all.
The dice know all, and they prove it every time we bring them out. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, talking about Star Trek novels. We know that there's at least 3 of us in the universe. You, the listener, me and Rob, who are big fans of 80 Star Trek novels, and so we're going to keep talking about them. Next up, we leave the last one we did, which is this episode, which is 33, and we jump to 35 with the Romulan Way.
And you know what's exciting is because we have some time freed up from our music podcast, we will be getting probably more reading done in the month of June than normal.
Darn right.
And maybe we can bang out 2 of these suckers.
And so there's something to look forward to. It's summertime and the reading is easy, babies. So keep joining us here on our treks through TOS novels, which is our pocket treks, trek pocketing, trekking. I'm not sure exactly how we pronounce that.
Trek in your pocket.
All right. And with that, we say Das Vidanya.
This is Rob Ilyanovich McCullough signing off.